because you know, I am sort of living the limit case right now of I've got to get stuff done and I really don't have a lot of time. So I get an hour a day where I exercise on my bike, and this is me on my bike, and if you look carefully you can see I'm wearing that headset and I've got my cell phone, and for an hour a day I ride my bike around the neighborhood. This is time that I'm spending on the phone getting work done, and it's not a moment being taken away from my wife or my children. And it turns out that I can talk and ride a bike at the same time. Amazing the skill sets I have. So it works better in cold weather climate, in warm weather climates, but I have just found that having a headset frees me up. Even if it's just around the house, you wear a headset, you can fold laundry. It's an absolute twofer. And I just think telephones should have headsets, and someday we will all have the Borg implant, and it will be a non-issue. What else is on my desk? I have sort of one of those address stampers because I got tired of writing my address. I have a box of Kleenex. In your box at work, if you're a faculty member, you have to have a box of Kleenex. Because if it, Jim is laughing, right? You know, at least if you teach the way I do, there will be crying students in your office. And what I found to diffuse a lot of that is that I would have CS 352 or whatever written on the side of the Kleenex box. And I would turn it as I handed it to them. And they would take the Kleenex and they would be like, oh, I said, yeah, you know, it's for the class. You know, you're not alone. So having Kleenex is very important. And thank you cards. I'll now ask the embarrassment question. And I don't mean to pick on you, but it just points things out so well. By show of hands, who here has written a thank you note that is not a quid pro quo? I don't mean, oh, you gave me a gift, I wrote you a thank you note. And I mean a physical thank you note with a pen and ink and paper, not email, because email's better than nothing, but it's that much better than nothing. Okay? How many people here have written a thank you note in the last week? Not bad. I do better here than at most places, because it is UVA. Chivalry is not that. But that's not, how many people in the last month? How many people in the last year? The fact that there are a non-trivial number of hands not up for the year means that anybody who's in this audience, his parents are going, ooh, that was my kid. Thank you notes are really important. They're a very tangible way to tell someone how much you appreciated things. I have thank you notes with me, and that's because I'm actually writing some later today to some people who've done some nice things for me recently. And you say, well, God, do you have time for that? And I'm like, yes, I have time for that, because it's important. Even in my current status, I will make time to write thank you notes to people. And even if you're a crafty, weaselly bastard, you should still write thank you notes, because it makes you so rare that when someone gets a thank you note, they will remember you. Right? It seems like the only place that thank you notes are really taken seriously anymore is when people are interviewing for jobs. They now sometimes write thank you notes to the recruiters, which I guess shows a sign of desperation on the part of the recent graduates. But thank you notes are a wonderful thing, and I would encourage all of you to go out and buy a stack at your local dime store and have them on your desk so that when the moment seizes you, it's right there. And I leave my thank you notes out on the desk, readily accessible. And as I've said before, gratitude is something that can go beyond cards. When I got tenure here, I took my whole research team down to Disney World on my nickel for a week. And I believe in large gestures, but you know, it was a lot of fun. I wanted to go too, right? I didn't send them without proper chaperoning, after all. What else? I have a paper recycling bin, and this is very good because it helps save the planet, but it also helps save my butt. So when I have a piece of paper that I would be throwing away, I put it in that bin, and that takes, I don't know, a couple of weeks to get filled up and then actually sent somewhere else. And so what I've really done here is I've created sort of the Windows Macintosh trash can you can pull stuff back out of. It works in the real world, too. And about once a month, I go ferreting through there to find the receipt that I didn't think I'd ever need again that I suddenly need. And it's extremely handy. I suspect that if I were giving this talk in 10 years, I would say I just put it in the auto scanner. Right? Because I find it almost inconceivable that 10 years from now, first off, that a lot of the stuff would be paper in my hands anyway. But if it were paper, that I would have any notion of doing anything other than putting it on the desk where it goes zip and it's already scanned because it touched the desk. Right? You know, this kind of stuff is not really hard to do. So I think that's what's going to happen. And of course, I have a phone book, notepad. I can't live without Post-it notes. Right? I mean, you know, and the view out the window of the dog. Because the dog reminds me that I should be out playing with him. When I got married, I married into a family. I got a wife and 2 beautiful dogs. There's the other one. Could you help me with the debate I've had with my wife? By show of hands, how many people would semantically say the dog is on the couch? Nobody. Thank you. Thank you. Because the dog was not allowed on the couch. And my wife came in one day. And anyway, thank you for agreeing with me. It makes me feel very good. So the dog is wonderful. The dogs have long gone on, but they are still in our hearts and our memories, and I think of them every day, and they're still a part of my life. I've presented to you how I do my office, how I do things. It's not the only way. One of the best assistants I've ever met was a woman named Tina Cobb, and she has a completely different system. She's a spreader. All right? If you think about it, there's a method to her madness. Everything here is exactly 1 arm's radius from where she sits. You know, it's like a 2-armed octopus. And she got so much stuff done, and I never presume to tell somebody else how to change their system if their system is working. Tina was much more efficient than I was. So, you know, I would just say, look, do what works for you. And everybody has to find the system for themselves. But you really got to think about what makes me more efficient. Let's talk about office logistics. In most office settings, people come into each other's offices and proceed to suck the life out of each other. If you have a big, cushy chair in your office, you might as well just slather butter all over yourself and send yourself naked into the woods for the wild animals to attack you. I say make your office comfortable for you and optionally comfortable for others. So no comfy chairs. I used to have folding chairs in my office, folded up against the wall. So people want to come into me and talk with me, they can stand. And I would stand up because then the meeting's going to be really fast because we want to sit down. But then if it looks like it's something that we should have a little more time on, I very graciously go over and open the folding chair. I'm such a gentleman. Some people do a different tack on this. They have the chair already there, but they cut 2 inches off the front leg. So the whole time you're in their office, you're sort of scooting yourself up. I'm not advocating that, but I thought it was damn clever the first time I saw it. Scheduling yourself. Verbs are important. You do not find time for important things. You make it. And you make time by electing not to do something else. There's a term from economics that everybody should hold near and dear to that heart, and that term is opportunity cost. The bad thing about doing something that isn't very valuable is not that it's a bad thing to have done it. The problem is that once you spend an hour doing it, that's an hour you can never again spend in any other way. And that's important. Now, how do you keep these unimportant things from sucking into your life? You learn to say no. It's great. My youngest child, Chloe, is at an age where this is her new word. About 2 weeks ago, she learned it. And it's like now everything is no, 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 no. She should be giving this talk. Right? And I asked her, and she said, no. So she's home playing. All right? But we all hate to say no, because people ask us for help, and we want to be gracious. So let me teach you some gentle no's. The first one is, I'll do it if I'm really strapped, but I want to help you. I don't want you to be in the bind. So if nobody else steps forward, I will do this for you. All right? Or I'll be your deep fallback, but you have to keep searching for somebody else. Now, you will find out about the person's character at that moment, because if they say, great, I got my sucker, and they stop looking, then they have abused the relationship. But if they say, that's great, my stress level is down at 0, because now I know it's not going to be a disaster, but I'm going to keep looking for somebody for whom it's less of an imposition. That's a person that will get lots of this sort of support. Okay? When I was in graduate school, we did a moving party with 4 people. A lot of moving parties carry heavy objects. We had 4 people. We should have had 12. It was a long day. And after that, I adopted a new policy. I said, from now on, when somebody says, will you help me move, I'll say, how much stuff you got? And they would tell me, and I'd say, that sounds like about 8 people. If you give me the names of 7 other people that'll be there, I'll be there. And I never again was at a moving party that went for 14 hours in January in Pittsburgh. Everybody has good and bad times. A big thing about time management is find your creative time and defend it ruthlessly. Spend it alone, maybe at home if you have to, but defend it ruthlessly. The other thing is find your dead time. Schedule meetings, phone calls, exercise, mundane stuff, but do stuff during that where you don't need to be at your best. And we all have these times. And the times are not at all intuitive. I discovered that my most productive time was between 10 p.m. and midnight, which is really weird, but it's sort of this, for me, it's just this burst of energy right before the end. Let's talk about interruptions. An interruption, there are people who measure this kind of stuff, who have stopwatches and clipboards, and what they say is that an interruption takes typically 6 to 9 minutes, but then there's a 4 to 5 minute recovery to get your head back into what you're doing. And if you're doing something like software creation, you may never get your head back there. The cost can be infinity. But if you do the math on that, 5 interruptions blows a whole hour. So you've got to find ways to reduce both the frequency and the length of these interruptions. One of my favorites is turn phone calls into email. If you phone my office at Carnegie Mellon and it says, "Hi, this is Randy. Please send me email." Again, I presume everybody here has email. How many people here, when a new message comes in, does your computer go ding or make some other noise? Do we still have people doing that? What the heck is wrong with you people? And I love the fact that computer scientists just know nothing about anything. So for years, by default, all these packages out of the box would go ding every time you get a new piece of email. So we had taken a technology explicitly designed to reduce interruption, and we'd turned them into interruptions. So you just got to turn that off. The whole point of email is you go to it when you're ready, not you're sitting around like Pavlov's dog saying, "Oh, maybe I'll get another email." In the same way you try to not interrupt other people, I save stuff up, so I have boxes for Tina or for my research group meeting, and I put stuff in those boxes, and then once a week or however often when the box gets full, I walk down the hall and I interrupt that person one time and say, "Here are the 8 things I have for you." How do you cut things short? Because people will always want to spend more time than you want to spend. Well, you can say, look, somebody interrupts you and says, got a few minutes, and I say, well, I'm in the middle of something right now. And that tells them, I'm interrupting it, I'm going to do it quickly, but I've got to get back to that. Or you can say, I only have 5 minutes. The great thing about that is that later you have the privilege of extending that if you so choose, but when the 5 minutes are up, you can say, well, I said at the beginning I only had 5 minutes and I really have to go now. So it's a very socially polite way to bound the amount of time on the interaction. If somebody's in your office and they don't get it, now I'm not saying that as a computer scientist I have an inordinate amount of time to interact, opportunity to interact with people with no social skills. But if you have someone in your office who is just not getting it, what you do is you stand up, you walk to the door, you compliment them. For some reason, this is a crucial part of the process. You thank them and you shake their hand. And if they still don't leave, which is pretty much a guarantee that you're dealing with someone from my tribe, then you're in the doorway, you just keep going. What I have found is that people don't like it when you look at your watch while you're talking with them. So what I do is I put a wall on the clock right behind them so it's just off axis from their eyes, and I can just kind of glance over a little bit when I need to see what time it is. It's a very nice way to get me information without being rude to them. Time journals. Time is the commodity. You better find out where your time is going. So monitor yourself and update it throughout the day. You can't wait till the end of the day and say, what was I doing at 10:30? Because our memories aren't that good. So what you do, and I really hope that technology within another 5 years or so will be so good that the time journals can be created automatically, or at least some facsimile of it. But until then, what we do is we monitor it ourselves. So this is what an empty time journal would look like. The details aren't important, but the key thing is that when you fill it in, you've got a bunch of categories and what I was doing, and you can do this very informally, but you get a lot of real data about where your time went. And it's always very different. Anybody who's done monetary budgeting, you look at it and you go, wow, I didn't know I was spending that much on dry cleaning or restaurants. It's always a fascinating surprise. And you always spend more than you think. But with time budgets, you find out that the time is just going wildly differently than you would have imagined. The best example of this I know is Turing Award winner Fred Brooks's time clocks. He's a brilliant computer scientist, but he also has this great array of clocks in his office. And when you go in and talk to him, he says, is this meeting about research or teaching?